Next up is Jadin James. Jadin is a COM student right here at UNE. Come on down.
People may not remember what you did, but they will remember the way you made them feel. This was a piece of advice that a nurse had given me on my first day during ride-along training when I was becoming an EMT. Now, I was 16 years old. I didn't have a lot of experience, and I also didn't know much of anything at that point. And that entire shift, all I wanted to do was be able to help, yet somehow I ended up in everybody's way. And honestly, I even felt like I was a waste of space on the linoleum that I was standing on in the emergency room next to the nurse's station right after we had dropped off a patient. So you can imagine how excited I was when the paramedic who was training me that day asked me to fetch the laptop from the ambulance. Finally, something I could do to help. So I seized on this opportunity of redemption, and I started marching out of the emergency room. And I made it through the first set of sliding glass doors, through the vestibule, second set of sliding glass doors. And then I made it to the ambulance, grabbed my laptop, and started making my way back. How could I possibly screw up something as simple as fetching the laptop? It was at this time that I kind of noticed something out of the corner of my eye, and there was another ambulance barreling up the hill towards the hospital. And it was right about, I was about to get to the threshold, and they had ripped open the back of the ambulance, and there was an EMT straddling a patient performing CPR chest compressions. Realizing I obviously needed to get the heck out of the way, I put the laptop under my arm, and I very athletically whisked myself and past the first set of sliding glass doors into the vestibule. I had successfully made it through one time already, and I had seen the end zone just on the other side and start making my way through the second set of sliding glass doors and stop. Now, the next thing that I remember were two exact things, actually. First was what sounded like a mechanical clunking sound, which I can only imagine was some sort of safety system put in the sliding glass doors that shuts down when someone's stuck inside them. And the immense amount of pressure on either one of my shoulders as I stood wedged there. The next 5 seconds or so happened in slow motion. I looked at the bewildered faces in front of me and of all the hospital staff completely flabbergasted at what they were looking at. And I even managed to crane my neck just enough to smush my face against the glass door that was next to me and saw the incoming ambulance crew getting closer and closer. Now, at this point, finally, a security guard grabbed me by the uniform, pulled me as hard as he could, freeing the glass doors and as well as allowing the ambulance crew to follow through into the trauma bay unimpeded, also sending me tumbling down the adjacent hallway. With my shoulders and my ego bruised, I sat down on the bench in the hallway, trying to fathom how I managed to screw up a task that even a trained monkey should have been able to do. And I just sat there thinking, thank goodness, at least I didn't delay any kind of patient care. But how is it possible that in a job that all I wanted to do was help, as I couldn't find a single way to help? Now, it was at this point that a man sat down next to me in the hallway on the bench, and he asked me how I was doing. And I said, well, it's my first day, and it isn't going well. And I said, how are you doing? And he said, he looked down at his feet, and he said with kind of a shaky voice, they called me down here. They said that my father had collapsed, and that he was brought here by ambulance, and that it's not looking good. Now, we were the only other ambulance in the bay at the time, and we had brought in a child. So I quickly put two and two together and realized that I had just seen his father only a few moments before. And I froze. But the one thing that I remembered was the piece of advice that the nurse had given me, and that people may not remember what you did, but they will remember the way you made them feel. So I said the first thing that popped into my head, which was, why don't you tell me about your dad? And he smiled, still watery-eyed, but he started telling me stories. He shared funny memories from when he was a kid and anything that popped into his head. And after a few minutes, he was summoned to come inside, and he stood up and turned to me and said, thank you for listening. And he disappeared beyond the trauma bay doors. Now, I don't know what happened to him or his father, but I'll never forget him. After what is now a 10-year career in EMS and an equally long career in embarrassing moments, and arguably, almost most importantly, as I embark on a career starting to become a doctor, the one thing that I learned was you don't have to hold on to the embarrassing moments, because whenever you're stuck, I finally found something you can always do, and that's listen. Thank you.